This is kind of a big question, but I think you can handle it.
Hope so.
A critique that is often lobbied against romance novels in general is that they can't be feminist because they are centering the woman's story on she has to find happiness in the context of love, often with a man, but just in general, like, oh, she has to fall in love to be happy. And I've thought about this a lot in particular with the suffragette uprising because this series is very explicitly let's talk about women who are fighting for rights, fighting the status quo. What are your thoughts on that critique and how do you approach it in your fiction?
Always with one eye towards, yes, I am rewriting the heteronormative script. Yes, it's a question I ask myself too. Why am I drawn to this genre that is in part so deeply heteronormative? And why do I keep writing that? And it's because the romantic in me wants the happy ever after. The romantic in me wants them to find a love story that is nurturing and fulfilling on their own terms. A long time ago, I'm going to try to recall her name to mind, and I know she's on the shelf behind me. Pamela, her name will come to me, did a deep dive into the romance and why women love it. And her conclusion was that it's because it enacts the fantasy of the nurturing partner who is the equal, who supports the woman in becoming her best self. It's a meeting of minds. He supports her ambition. And the best ones, he doesn't ever break her. There's might be a lot of conflict, but always in the end, she emerges into this new self. She finds new parts of herself in love. And in my romances, I've always felt because I am deeply feminist and because I am a scholar and because I have always been interested in women who want more than just love. They also want a career. I've also always been drawn to writing these historicals with women who are in just single-minded pursuit of that ambition. And then the man comes along and gets in the way. So it ends up that they get their happy ending and their career. Do they have it all? I don't know. I've scripted them into times that are historically limiting towards women as well. How do you work a feminist narrative into a world where women can't own property, can't vote, can't have any custody of their own children if something happens? Those are questions I think it's worth exploring. And there have always been independent women, feminist women, proto-feminist women there too. So I think the way I justify it to myself, the reading and writing of romance, is that this is about a woman discovering herself and finding fulfillment, and I'm all for that. And it so happens that she's finding fulfillment in realizing her dreams and finding love. And why not try to have both of those
Mhm.
things? So much of the world is trying to tell us you have to make, and in practical terms, there's only 24 hours of a day. I completely understand. There are compromises, there are sacrifices. But to find fulfillment in a broad number of things, I think women deserve that. And that's what I want to see happening in the books that I read and write.
I love that. I think the idea that we can integrate it so that we can be happy in multiple spheres and find success in multiple spheres, and also that success in a relationship is worth it, in addition to success in other spheres, is for me a nice thing to think about.
I think the idea that you have to sacrifice something is very modern because if you look at the superwomen of 19th century England and 18th century England and early England, they almost always have families. They almost always have, like all of these little kids behind them. Of course, they probably have domestic help, but they can be doing something else too. They're managing the household accounts, they're running an estate, they're inventing something, they're writing at the same time. It doesn't seem to be, I suppose that's the origin of the debates and the anxiety about it, right? When women start edging into what are considered male realms. And then there has to
Mhm.
be some sort of line drawing. But no, you have to be the domestic angel. You have to be the
Right.
angel in the house. This is the woman's sphere. That becomes so sharply demarked in the 19th century, and it's still under discussion in the 18th. And I think that's one reason that a lot of my work so far are set there. It's far less
And
decorous.